there guys, as I promised today I have a book talk and this one's on retellings. So this struck me as a topic that should be discussed or that I would like to discuss when I was first listening to the first Percy Jackson book. I was extremely annoyed by how predictable it was. It got me to thinking, aren't all retellings predictable? Which then got me to thinking, no, and why not? And does everyone else hate the predictableness of certain retellings? So I guess the first thing to say would be, what makes a retelling a good retelling? Predictableness is not anything I look for in any book. I don't really like it in any book. But some books, I know what's going to happen, but it's still written well enough that I enjoy it. And I think that's what takes a retelling from simply a retelling to a book individually. I think a novel retelling anything should be able to stand on its own, whether you know it's a retelling or not, whether you've read the original text or not. As examples, I have 5 books that are retellings that some have done right and some have done wrong. Warning, there are spoilers in this as it's kind of difficult to talk about these books. I will put links right here as I begin to talk about a book that you can skip to the next book. The first one for me was Percy Jackson. Only the first book. I'm currently reading the second book, not far enough in, already a little predictable. I have a major issue with this series. I understand it's a younger book. It's aimed at middle grade. Despite being a middle grade book, I still find it extremely predictable. I went through a phase in about 4th grade where I did extensive research and read everything I could get my hands on about Greek and Roman mythologies. So a book about demigods in a Greek mythological world, essentially, is kind of predictable. I will add that I did not see the movie before reading this book. I have not done research on it. Everyone got really excited about Percy Jackson, and I knew it was going to be some kind of Greek mythology, so I did not do any research. I did not watch any reviews and wouldn't listen to anyone if they tried to tell me anything about it. So I did not go in with any knowledge other than that it was a Greek mythology type story. Not far into the book, I started predicting things that happened exactly like I expected them to. I assumed Mrs. Dodds was some kind of monster because Greek mythology has a lot of different monsters. That's just a thing. And if Percy obviously had to be a demigod to make the book worth reading, monster was probably after the demigod. Predictable. Also, not very far into the book, I picked up on the fact that Percy was in fact Poseidon's son. So when he got to Camp Half-Blood, I got really annoyed with the, I don't know who my father is, where do I belong? No one knows who my father is, I am sad. It got really annoying because his mother met his father on the beach. Their favorite place is the beach. Water, ocean, beach, And a major thing that really annoyed me, I guess, or spoiled me on the book, perhaps it's just that I read too much, but when it said, a friend will betray you, I think you were supposed to think it was Annabeth. I'm not really sure what the author intended, but I automatically said it was Luke. Of course it's Luke. He's the one who's been too friendly. There's a vast number of other things that I could say about this book being predictable, but instead I will say that despite it being predictable, I really did enjoy the book and obviously am continuing the series. The second book I want to talk about is Spindle's Inn by Robin McKinley. This one's a retelling of Sleeping Beauty. This one's not too hard to pick out. Spindle's End. Castle just looks like it. On the back, it says a princess named Briar Rose. They call her Rosie. It's really not hard to pick up that this book is a retelling of the story of Sleeping Beauty. But this one was extremely original. My mind was entirely blown, and I really most of the time forgot that it was a retelling and just saw it as Rosie's life and Rosie's story as a hidden princess, which isn't always a Sleeping Beauty thing. It's a common theme in a lot of fairy tale type books. If you couldn't tell, I really, really love this book. It was one of the best books I've read in a very long time. Robin McKinley does wonderful with her retellings because a lot of the time you can forget that it is a retelling. And even so, the way things come about, that inevitably will come about. Beauty will always fall in love with the Beast, and the princess will always be put under a spell to sleep and awakened. That's just how it is. With Miss McKinley's books, these things, as much as they are accepted, she throws a major twist onto it to throw you off course. And I think that is an excellent example of a retelling gone perfect. The third one is going to be a very controversial issue. Cinder. A retelling of Cinderella. As far as a retelling goes, I hated it. The book was okay. I didn't hate it, and I do intend to read the rest of the series. But as a retelling of Cinderella, I just couldn't. I found it extremely disappointing. Either there weren't enough connections or the connections got on my nerves, just depending on which moment of the book it was. I didn't find a fairy godmother, which drove me insane. I talked about all of this in my review, which I will put here. This is a link. Click it if you would like to see my book review of Cinder and my complaints. Another thing I had a problem with as far as a retelling is that she named Cinder Cinder, which made it extremely difficult for me to forget that it was a retelling. I do think that I really would have loved the book if I had not been trying to compare it to Cinderella constantly, which the name Cinder leads me to do. The next book on my list is Ella Enchanted. This is apparently a retelling of Cinderella also. I never drew those parallels. I've been reading this book every other summer since I was like 5. This is one of my favorite books, and until recently I never picked up on the fact that it was a retelling of Cinderella. I love this book. I think it's fantastic and a wonderful way to show a retelling gone well, because as a child I read Cinderella. I read the original tell, I watched the movie, the Disney movie, constantly, and I never drew the parallels. Now that I know it's a retelling, I can see the parallels. I can see the evil stepmother. I can see all of these parallels that I never saw as a child, or even as a slightly younger teenager reading the book again. Finally, the last book on my list is The Espressologist. I have a review of that, which will be linked here now. I never knew this book was a retelling. It's not advertised as a retelling. It's advertised as a matchmaking book. According to the internets, it is a retelling of Emma by Jane Austen. I wouldn't have picked that up. Maybe I'm just blank. I haven't read Emma in forever. So maybe that's what it was, but I really did not draw the parallels. While I didn't overly love the book, it was very original, I thought, and I never drew the parallels, so I think that it's a retelling gone right. I also think that had I known it was a retelling, I would have liked it just as much, because I couldn't draw the parallels as easily. But these are all just my opinions, and I know that, and that's what a book talk is. So talk to me, make video responses, or leave me in the comments and let me know your thoughts on retellings on these specific books, or give me other examples. And let's get a discussion going, because this is something I find really interesting and would love to know your opinions. So comments down. If you like this kind of video, please give me a thumbs up so I can know how to try to do a little bit more of this. And if you want to see my book reviews, more of these, vlogs, other videos that I make, the subscribe button is, I think, down below the video. So you can click that and be up to date. Whatever you decide to do, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.